Most viral garden hacks are quietly ruining your soil. And honestly, most gardeners don't even realize it until their yields drop. I've tested a lot of these trending tricks in real gardens, raised beds, and hydroponic systems, and the truth is, some of them work incredibly well, while others do more harm than good. The problem is simple. These hacks often ignore how plants actually grow. They overload soil, disrupt microbial life, or create short-term results that collapse later in the season. That's why you see strong seedlings early on, then weak plants, poor fruiting, or nutrient deficiencies weeks later. Before we break them down, here's something that changed how I test all of these methods. I started using a small electric composter in my kitchen to convert scraps into consistent, nutrient-rich compost. It solved a problem I didn't even realize I had: unpredictable soil inputs. Instead of guessing what I'm feeding my plants, I know exactly what's going in. I'll leave the exact one I use in the description if you want to check it out. Let's start with the hacks that actually work and why they work. One of the most popular hacks is using banana peels for plant nutrition. This one gets exaggerated a lot, but there's some truth behind it. Banana peels do contain potassium, but burying whole peels in soil is slow and often ineffective. What actually worked for me was drying and crushing them into a powder before mixing into compost. That way, nutrients become available faster without attracting pests. Another viral trick is adding eggshells for calcium. Again, the idea is solid, but the execution is usually wrong. Large shell pieces barely break down during a growing season. Finally, grinding them into powder is what made the difference in my beds. I've seen reduced blossom end rot in tomatoes when used properly, but only when combined with consistent watering. Coffee grounds are another widely shared hack. Used incorrectly, they compact soil and disrupt pH balance. Used correctly, mixed lightly into compost or as a thin top dressing, they can improve microbial activity. I've tested this in containers and raised beds, and the key is moderation. Too much and your soil structure suffers. Now here's where most viral advice starts to fall apart. One of the worst hacks I've tested is putting random kitchen scraps directly into planting holes. You'll see this everywhere. People burying food waste under seedlings. What actually happens is nitrogen gets locked up during decomposition, starving the plant early on. This is exactly the kind of mistake that consistent composting prevents. When scraps are properly broken down first, like in the electric composter I mentioned, they become stable, plant-ready nutrients instead of a problem. Another misleading trick is overusing Epsom salt. It's often promoted as a cure-all for plant health. The reality is, unless your soil is deficient in magnesium, adding Epsom salt can create imbalances. I tested this in a controlled raised bed, and excess application led to weaker plants and reduced yields over time. Using baking soda to sweeten tomatoes is one of those half-truths. It can slightly alter soil pH, but flavor is more influenced by consistent watering and balanced nutrients. I tried this in containers, and the difference was negligible compared to proper soil management. Another example is using vinegar as a weed killer. Yes, it works, but it also damages surrounding soil biology. In pathways or non-growing areas, it's effective. In active beds, it's destructive. Companion planting is another popular topic. Some combinations help, but many claims are overstated. I've seen basil and tomatoes grow well together, but not because of any magical effect. It's more about shared growing conditions and efficient space use. One of the most underrated methods is top dressing with finished compost during the growing season. Instead of relying only on pre-plant fertilization, adding a thin layer, about 1 to 2 centimeters, around plants every few weeks provides steady nutrition. This works in raised beds, containers, and even hydroponic transitions when using organic mediums. It keeps microbial life active and nutrients available without shocking the plant. Another effective hack is deep watering instead of frequent shallow watering. I've tested both extensively. Shallow watering leads to weak surface-level roots. Deep watering, done less frequently, encourages roots to grow deeper and makes plants more resilient. Mulching is another one that actually lives up to the hype. A 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch stabilizes soil temperature, retains moisture, and supports microbial life. I've seen yields increase significantly just from consistent mulching alone. Some viral hacks simply don't apply to hydroponic systems at all. Things like eggshells, banana peels, or coffee grounds just don't translate directly because nutrients really need to be in a soluble form. In hydroponics, precision matters more than creativity. Stable nutrient solutions, proper oxygenation, and consistent pH control will outperform any so-called hack every single time. I've tested organic additives in hydro setups, and unless they're properly processed, they honestly cause more problems than benefits. The pattern I noticed after testing all these hacks is pretty clear. The hacks that actually work share one thing in common. They respect soil biology and nutrient balance. The ones that fail usually ignore these fundamentals. It's not about whether a hack is popular. It's about whether it aligns with how plants actually absorb nutrients and grow. That's why, simple, consistent practices really do outperform those trendy shortcuts. Consistency beats creativity in gardening. You don't need 15 hacks. What you really need are just a few proven methods applied correctly over time. That's why I rely on systems that remove guesswork. Consistent compost input, controlled watering, balanced soil structure. These, honestly, are what drive results. That small composting setup I mentioned earlier plays a bigger role than it seems. It ensures that every time I feed my plants, I'm adding stable, nutrient-rich material instead of experimenting blindly. If you're serious about improving your garden results in 2026, focus less on viral tricks and more on understanding the system you're working with. Soil, water, nutrients, and timing. Those are the levers that actually matter. If you're getting value from this kind of real-world testing, go ahead and subscribe now. This channel is all about what actually works in gardens, not just what sounds good online. At the end of the day, gardening really isn't about chasing hacks. It's about building a system that, consistently supports plant growth. Some viral tricks out there can help when they're used correctly. Others, though, quietly damage your soil and reduce your yields. The difference really comes down to understanding why something works, not just copying it. Now, if you found this useful, share it with someone who's serious about growing better food, and check out the composter in the description if you want to simplify how you feed your soil. Because once your soil is right, everything else just becomes easier, and your results start to speak for themselves.